This is where I would come in and sit down when I came to visit Manning in the mornings and the afternoons. I'd come every morning to get my orders for the day. Mostly I researched in the National Library, and I would go there after I'd been here. I would then, in the evening, return and give Manning what I'd researched during the day, whatever the research output was. Sometimes he was very tired, other times he was quite jovial, and we'd have a bit of a talk about it, and then we'd often go down and have a cup of tea in the kitchen area.
I first met Manning and Dymphna and first went to the house to be interviewed for a job as a research assistant on volume 5, and went to the house most mornings, arriving about 9:30 after he'd been upstairs writing for the previous 3 or so hours. I remember the first request, as he said, "I know there would have been an anti-war movement during the Boer War. I want you to go and find it." It was a very, intellectually stimulating job, and he had just been made Australian of the Year, so he was a very prominent public figure. He was asked to speak about just about anything, and because he was a great reader and thinker, he spoke about most things. Manning still looms so large in Australia's sort of cultural and intellectual discussion. Manning was driven, you've got to be driven to sit and write 6 volumes. He was full of self-doubt. He was sort of more pessimistic than optimistic.
It was a labour of love. By the time I was working for him, he was well past retirement age and had retired, in fact, from the ANU.
He was an academic, but he wasn't interested in writing what he saw as, dull articles that went into obscure journals. He had the capacity to tell the story in a way that people wanted to read it. I sort of understood how hard he worked and how difficult it was to, get another volume finished, and then what came with the finish once it was published, the criticism, the tearing down, all of that had a huge impact.
Often not in good health, often quite downcast by events, but other times he was ebullient and on top of form and joking and jovial, and I think people don't realise Manning's sense of humour was one of those great characteristics about the man.
I certainly remember Manning saying to me very early how absolutely, thrilled he was that he was able to sort of go up those very narrow stairs every day and, in a sense, shut himself off in that study to do the writing.
I mean, the room was very much his haven. And behind the door, these were the items that were very important to him, pictures of family, but also pictures of some of his great heroes like John Curtin, Fyodor Dostoevsky, particularly The Mockers and the Mourners by Arthur Boyd over there near the doorway. Manning looked after his filing. I didn't do any of that kind of thing at all. He would file it in the filing cabinets, but I didn't touch them. They were sacrosanct. Looking at this item of correspondence on the desk here, I'm astonished at how legible it is. Manning's writing was absolutely execrable. It was terrible. He would actually often write over things. He would write over the page. He would have arrows going here and there. It was a translation effort, really. I used to always make sure that I knew what had happened with Carlton over the weekend and think, oh my goodness, Carlton hasn't done well. It's not going to be a good morning this morning. Manning was an intensely committed member of the Carlton Football Club. I think he was a life member.
All his children were passionate about football. If Carlton lost, he was truly depressed in a way that just sort of stunned me. And at the same time, he was elated if they'd won. Football, absolutely the social glue within the family.